increasing sales, protecting your margins, scaling your business, and just making the life easier for your sales team. All of those are just almost no-brainers in today's complex world.
Louis-Nicolas, nice to have you back in studio with me. Today we're going to talk about Salesforce CPQ and in which cases a company would like to use that type of solution to manage their quoting and part of their selling process. We're going to go through a couple of use cases, solution or system selling. We're going to go through typically used for large manufacturers that have thousands and thousands of SKUs, bundles, discounts, distributor rates, etc. And we're also going to touch using CPQ for software as a service. So renewals, different licenses that start and stop at different dates, that type of bundling. And maybe if we have time, we'll go over variable pricing and other pricing strategies and situations that might apply to utilities. So let's start with the first one. So describe to me what would be a typical use case of a company that does solution and system selling, why they would use CPQ, what CPQ can do for them.
Right. So the primary use of CPQ is really if you have complex systems, complex solutions to sell, or sophisticated solutions. So CPQ is all about configure, price, quote. So the first thing is if you have a complex system, you need to provide your sales team with a very simple product configurator that allow them to go through all the different flows, identify the right product for the right use case, then allow them to automatically figure out the pricing, apply the right discounts, and finally, generate a very professional looking quote so that they can send to their customers. So that's the basics. But then the icing on the cake, especially for complex solution selling, is, well, what about add-ons? What about service contracts? What about warranties? Let's make sure that we are guiding our sales team to think about all of these extra add-ons so that we're obviously maximizing the revenue and margins that we can offer our customers.
Yeah, and you're right, because here, let's say if you're not involved in these types of system or solution selling, you might not see the complexity, but it's actually really, really complex. And a lot of people we meet in the marketplace still use Excel, very manual, very extremely actually time consuming. Like salespeople actually spending most of their time making quotes instead of selling. So if they had the right tools, they could save hours upon hours every week with a properly configured CPQ or something similar. So expand a bit. You gave a couple of examples, add-ons, warranties, etc., service contracts. Anything you want to add regarding the system or solution selling, which can combine software, hardware, service?
Just 2 points. Traditionally, or a couple of years ago, most companies that offered a CPQ solution were high volume B2C use cases, computers, cars, that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, as you said, we see too many manufacturers or complex selling solutions out there still operating with a manual. So it's very, very complex. The biggest bang for the buck is when you have different models, and you have the concepts of constraints and dependencies. So if you pick model A, for example, computer, what are the CPUs that apply to this computer? What are the RAM modules that you can add? Which ones you cannot? So the constraints and dependencies really is at the core of creating this bundle and making sure that you're guiding your sales team and your customers to choose the right ones for their particular needs.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this to me a while ago, that another big benefit is if it's properly designed, you save a lot on errors, which means you also save time and pain points to your operations team. So it's not just about the sales of it, it's about what comes after that, the ordering, the production, the delivery, and so on.
Yeah. A lot of our customers will ask, Well, what is the ROI of CPQ? And I love giving the example of one of our customers. He had just shipped a very expensive piece of hardware to Kuala Lumpur and realized that he had sold the wrong power supply. Something as basic as that. The impact on his reputation, the impact on shipping costs, the impact on penalties because he shipped the wrong product, it was huge. The ROI for CPQ, just with that single error being removed, was paid off.
Yeah.
So that's one of the cases, but then there's so many other challenges that we see in the marketplace. The big one is ramp up time of your sales team. If you have to hire more salespeople and you're trying to scale your business, unfortunately, if you have a complex solution to sell, it takes a lot of time for your sales team to ramp up. That's one thing. The other thing is, if you're trying to scale your business, well, you need, it's all about statistics. It's a numbers game. How many quotes can you get out there in the market? If it takes a lot of time generating those quotes, then your sales team isn't actually calling up on new customers and generating those quotes.
Yeah, and you might actually drop opportunities just because it seems too small to take the time to quote. That's how long your quoting process can take.
Exactly. And then worst, and this is something we see a lot, so many companies only have a couple highly specialized staff that can even conceive these quotes just because they're too complex. So how can you scale a business when you're dependent on a couple key staff to generate those quotes?
Yeah.
So just those challenges are extremely important, especially in the manufacturing or complex solution selling.
Yeah, the very precious sales engineer.
Correct.
All right. So I want to move on. So let's go to a different type of use case. Large manufacturer, 10,000, 100,000 SKUs, or a couple of thousand SKUs. We actually both work for a company that had over 100,000 SKUs. How does CPQ help for bundles, discounts, distributor rates, multipliers? Oh, this customer, that rate, that customer, that rate. Does that impact commission? All that jazz.
Exactly. So the first thing is, again, the concept of a guided selling. So you want a configurator that will guide your sales team step by step on making sure they're choosing the right product for the right use case for your customers. So that's the first step. The second step is, well, now you want to scale this. Why not allow your distributors, your resellers, your VARs, your system integrators generate their own quotes? You've just industrialized your whole CPQ process. It's done. Why not open this up? And you can do this with CPQ with a super easy partner portal where your partners can log in a secure environment, generate a quote, then request approvals so that someone internally at your company can approve it, validate it, and then send it to the customer. So opening up that CPQ process to your channels, it can also be very, very powerful. And then you can manage, all the different multipliers, the different discounts, the different currencies. All of that can be streamlined in CPQ.
Yeah, and just for maybe people less familiar with that universe, so you mentioned putting CPQ available to distributors and partners in a portal. So of course here we're referring to Salesforce Experience Cloud, which was called Community Cloud back in the day, but an easy way to make your internal tool available to partners, but in a secure way. So it's not available to the public, it's only available for your partners.
Exactly.
Before I move on to the next use case, anything you want to add on the big manufacturer?
For big manufacturers, it's all about forecasting. So if you're better managing your quotes, you know exactly which products, which add-ons, which models. If you have this data, this knowledge, you can better plan your supply chain, you can minimize your inventory, you can maximize cash flow. So again, having the right tool to allow you to build those quotes can be have a very big impact. And then finally, this is a use case we see a lot with large manufacturers. How many times do you get an order with having to ship products at different times and at different locations? How can you take one order and then split it to, with that schedule or the different locations? That's something that CPQ can handle for you as well.
Yeah, so expand on that. So your quoting tool, the output of it makes planning your production easier in an actual significant way, in a very highly detailed way. So can you expand a bit more on that?
So we see a lot of large manufacturers, they'll get a big order from one of their distributors or one of their top customers for 1,000 pieces. But they don't need 1,000 pieces right away. They'll need 1,000 pieces maybe across the next 3 or 4 quarters. So how can you split that order across different quarters so that, again, you have better visibility over your supply chain, your forecasting, making sure that you know the tool is allowing to split that large order into smaller orders, automatically calculating all of the right pricing, the right discounts. It has a huge impact, again, on creating those quotes, but having the better visibility.
Yeah. So that within your quoting tool, you actually have a matrix of quantity over time and not just a bucket of quantity.
Correct.
All right. Ready to move on to the software space?
Sure.
So if we look at software as a service, you could have various license bundles. Oftentimes, software vendors have different modules, different products within their software suite. So you'll have different licenses there. They might be taken at different times, so the renewal date is not the same. They might add or remove users over time. So there is complexity there. So how does a CPQ help, and what kind of use cases can a CPQ address for the SaaS vendor?
Right. So the first use case is obviously a new logo, a first sell, making sure that you're guiding your sales team again with product bundles. So you're selling solution A, why not bundle solution B and C to get a bigger footprint at that customer. But I think where CPQ has the most value for software as a service is for renewals. So you need a tool that's going to automatically manage all those renewals. You don't want your sales team worrying about renewals. You want them to be out there to upsell to existing customers or getting new logos. You don't want them managing those low value manual tasks. So CPQ can manage all those renewals for you automatically. But then CPQ also allows you to manage all of those fringe cases that can be very, very challenging. Customer calls you, before their renewal date, and they want to add a couple licenses. They want to put an extra add-on. How do you manage that? How do you price them? Do you start a new contract? Do you add on those licenses for just a couple months for the renewal? CPQ can handle all those different use cases. And again, the idea is just streamlining the process, making it easy for your sales team to offer the right products with the right pricing. And again, with the concepts of amendments, if you have to amend a contract, those can be very, very complex. Again, guiding your sales team through that process can be very, very useful. And finally, if you have a complicated approval process, how do you manage that? And what is your approval process? Is it different departments? Does it have to go all the way to the CFO? Does it have to go through product approval? So if you have a complicated approval process, CPQ can really manage all of those complex.
Yeah, and actually, I'm sure many companies have different approval process based on size of deal, maybe based on region, maybe based on the product or software that was selected. Mm-hmm. And so all that granularity, those different use cases, you can configure your CPQ to handle those. Correct.
And then I think the last thing, just like in the manufacturing world, if you're selling software as a service, again, with different activation dates, how do you manage revenue recognition?
Yes.
That can be extremely complicated as well. We've seen it with a lot of our customers. They really struggle with that. But if you can automate, if you can define your clear business rules, how do you want to recognize revenue on those software licenses, maybe on some of the professional services to activate those licenses, These are all things, again, that CPQ can automate.
Yeah, and also because those things again are going to impact commission,
Exactly.
and of course other key components of your business. All right, so I want to address a last type of use case, and this applies to in some instances different types of brokers, can apply to utilities. Any type of company where the price is variable based on market context, market situations. So tell me more about managing variable pricing that also impacts commission, that also has other dependencies in the business, and what CPQ supports in terms of use cases.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. So again, product bundling is key. How do you bundle different products? How do you apply discounts on volume? Can you do discount schedules? Whereas, for the first 10 licenses that you buy, or the first 10 units, you get X amount of a discount. From 10 to 20, you get another. So you can define those different discount schedules, something you can do in CPQ. How do you manage promotions? We see this a lot in, telecommunications, utilities. There's regional promotions. There are promotions that are limited in time. They can get really, really complicated and confusing.
Yeah, and in the case of utilities, if you have energy pricing that fluctuates throughout the day, if you're a broker of some kind of financial product, interest rates might fluctuate, either on a daily basis or weekly or monthly or quarterly basis. So those types of price fluctuations based on the market.
Yeah, and that's where with simple business rules, we can automate pricing. So you don't even have to worry about that. You can grab the pricing, the latest price rate from the web, based on crude oil, utility costs, etc. And then you can automate calculating those prices. And again, you can do that on a daily basis. So again, you're removing that complexity from the selling piece, and removing the onus of calculating all of those things on a daily basis.
Yeah, and underlying this, I'm guessing from a technical standpoint, you have your API integration with whatever objective price indicator you're dealing with in the market, connected to your Salesforce, where CPQ resides, and that's how you automatically manage those rules without manual intervention.
Yeah, that's why Salesforce, being an open platform, is so useful. Not only can you integrate through an API to any third-party system, you can also integrate to your ERP. So if your material costs, your inventories is changing, your margins are changing, you can have that automatically sync to CPQ, so that you're automatically adjusting your pricing, so that you're ensuring you always keep a specific margin. So these are all things, again, that can be done with an open platform like Salesforce.
All right, super interesting. I think we covered a lot of these use cases, at least, setting a primer on our discussions about these different business situations. We probably are going to do maybe a deeper dive in some of those in the future. Before we leave, any other notes you want to add about CPQ or the type of businesses it can apply to?
Well, again, if you have a business and you're selling sophisticated solutions, complex systems, and you're still working with Excel, you're still manually generating quotes.
I was going to say, don't say Excel.
Putting a tool like CPQ in place, the ROI is extremely fast. It has so many advantages, not just on increasing sales, protecting your margins, scaling your business, and just making the life easier for your sales team. All of those are just almost no-brainers in today's complex world.
Yeah, and the thing you don't want to hear as a salesperson, or that you don't want to say as a sales manager, is what do you mean the quote is not ready, right? Nobody likes to say that, and nobody likes to hear that. So there's a solution for it if people are ready to invest the time, get it set up, and then get going.
Yeah, and again, if you've put in the effort to automate this whole process, why not opening up to your partners or even to your customers? This is becoming more and more popular. People are creating self-service portals so customers can log in, add more licenses, put in add-ons. They can do that all, extremely simple. They don't even have to call anyone. They have the full power of doing it through a self-service portal.
And that approach of low touch, highly automated, self-service, that's where you can scale your business.
Exactly.
You empower the customer, you empower the partner. They, in a way, do a lot of the business actions that your staff would have done in the past by themselves, so you can focus your staff on value-added tasks and not the transactional piece, which is taken care of online in a public or private portal.
And that's what all modern user experiences are all about. It's digitizing, automating your processes. Customers expect this now. They use this in their day-to-day lives, and they expect this as well in the business world.